Hey Matt, what are you doing?
So you're taking a bath, Daddy?
Yeah?
I was born on August 23rd, 1995 in Apopka, Florida. Apopka is this little kind of dinky town. I know we were the first house in our neighborhood. There was nothing. It was like big news when we got a super Walmart in Apopka. I know it's a little different now, but back then it was nothing, a whole lot of nothing. I wish I remembered more of like my early childhood, because just based on like pictures, videos, little like slivers of memories that I have, it was really great early on. We were just like, kind of a basic lower middle class family. I have 2 siblings. Early on, my mom was just kind of like a stay-at-home mom with us. She taught like kickboxing and Pilates and like very active things, so I was always around that. My dad worked for some company, I don't know. It was just very normal. My older sister was in gymnastics, and from what I was told, I was dragged along because I was the baby, and I would always go off and try and do it, and eventually like, hey, why don't you do like mommy and me classes, because you could do those when you're 1 to 2 years old. And I just started in gymnastics. At the time I was 4, they had recruited me to the competitive team, which were 3-hour practices 5 days a week. I know my mom tells a story of like, she's like, are you sure? Like, that's really long. And I just like kind of skipped to the back of the gym with the team. And so from 3-4 years old on, I was training 3-4 hours a day, every single day, and kind of never stopped. I am the middle child of 3 siblings, older sister and younger brother. So I know there's kind of stereotypes about the middle child. I don't know if I fit those, but I am the middle child. I was the only blonde one in my whole family, so there's a lot of jokes of being like, oh, you're the milkman's kid, because now I look like my mom, but back then I had this like platinum blonde bowl cut, and my siblings both had black hair. So I was very small until about 1st grade. I was the smallest one in my class. I just had this big old head on this like very tiny body, and then in 1st grade I grew 11 inches. So initially, like, when you're early compulsory level gymnastics, you're small, and you're like, yeah, it's looking good for this one. And then I just kind of like sprouted up, and by the time I was 11, they had already told my mom like, hey, she's a little too tall for this sport, like her feet are too big for the beam. But I stuck with it until I was 13, and I vividly remember the day that I quit. I was over it. At that point, it was 5-hour practices 6 days a week. And I had started kind of like within that year kind of making excuses like, oh, I'm sick, I can't go to practice today. And at that point I was in middle school. So I'd go to middle school till 4 o'clock, go straight from school, eat in the car to practice. Practice ended at 9 o'clock, 45-minute drive home. So I wouldn't get home till like 10 o'clock. And then that's when I could do homework, eat, do anything that a normal kid would need to get done before they wake up and do it again the next day. I had a mental block on beam. I really hated back tumbling. For whatever reason, terrified me. I still have like vivid nightmares about it. And I was learning, it's called a layout on beam. And I kept just like, it's called balking. I would like start to go and then stop. And the coach had kept me there 30, 45 minutes after practice on my 13th birthday. She was making me do them over and over and over. And I remember doing them and thinking, this is the last time I'm ever gonna have to do them. And I went home that night and I never came back. My childhood was great until it wasn't, and it's unfortunate that I don't really have any memories of when it was great. I only have, kind of photo, video evidence of that portion, because when I was 6, my dad passed away from colon cancer.
Now it's recording. Hi, Matt.
My dad was diagnosed with cancer when I was maybe 4, almost 5. From what I was told, by the time they caught it, it had already spread. It was already like stage 4 terminal cancer, and they gave him 6 months to live. I don't really know a lot because it's not something that I was ever kind of part of any of the discussions. That's not quite how my family operated after the fact. It's kind of just like, this happened, we don't talk about it. But I do know that he lived a lot longer than they thought he would, and he did live until I just turned 6. But at that point it was living in and out of hospitals. We had a hospital bed in our house with the oxygen tanks, and that's kind of like my first memories. I remember the night that he passed, we had this like Halloween dress up sleepover lock-in at my gymnastics gym. Even then, like, Halloween was my favorite, like it is now. And I'd finally gotten my sister to go with me, and I was so excited, but we had all this family in town because they, I guess, knew it was getting close to the end. Over the gym intercom, they called me and my sister, and my aunts came to pick us up, and that ended up being the night that he had passed. So at that point, we didn't get to say goodbye. We just knew what was happening, and when we woke up the next morning, we knew my dad wasn't there anymore.
What in your life changed after you passed away?
I mean, I don't think any parent prepares for the fact that their spouse will die at such a young age with such young kids. I mean, he was only 36 or 38, so that's not old. That's not a time that anyone, I mean, that's only 8 years older than I am, and I think about that now that I'm older. It's like he was diagnosed, and I think my mom was like 35. I think my mom was just really struggling, and I think specifically the way that she was raised and the way that the family kind of operated was, we don't talk about feelings, we don't get help, we don't, address these things. They just are what they are. You act however you act. You don't talk about it. I think a lot of my childhood, I resented the way she responded, but now as an adult, you can't fault someone for how they grieve. When you're a parent in that situation, it's hard to just take care of yourself when you have to take care of these young kids who barely know what's going on. I mean, my brother was 3 at the time. So it kind of just became a fend for yourself situation from 6 on. I vividly remember I learned to pack my lunch, do my laundry that year. And from 6 to, I mean, we could even say into my 20s, but till I moved out at 17, that's just how we existed. We all fended for ourselves. We did what we could. We tried to stay out of my mom's way when she was, drinking, angry, not taking care of herself. And I hate to say those things because I know it would hurt her to know how much it impacted us, but it's not something I want to put any shame or guilt to. Who am I to say I would have acted any differently? I don't know. That's a situation no one is prepared for.
Do you think you had a good childhood?
No. I think I had a pretty shit childhood, but I do think it greatly shaped me into who I am, my work ethic, because it was just, you do these things to survive. You do these things because it's your only out. It's your only way to change the situation you're in. Learning that at 6 years old develops this character and this deep-seated work ethic that you can't have that otherwise. I don't know who I would be if I didn't go through all of that. It was just so much anger and yelling and just no kind of accountability for any sort of actions. And we raised ourselves. Whether my mom wants to admit that or not, she wasn't there. She chose not to be a mom. Whether that was out of necessity, because she had to work and support 3 kids. She was a school teacher. Most kids look back on a childhood and they're like, oh, I played with these friends and I went this place and I did all this. And I just only remember doing sports so that I could stay out of the house for as many hours out of the day as possible. When I quit gymnastics, I went into cheerleading because there was a gym I could walk to. It was like a mile-ish from my house, but I couldn't afford the team dues or fees. So that was my first job. I started working there when I was 14 or 15. You can't get paid, so it's just in exchange for being able to be on the team. Those are things, if I wasn't at school, I was at work. If I wasn't at work, I was at a sport of some sort. And I just tried to stay away from home as much as I could because it was just such a big, looming, toxic, just like environment that just like sucked all the life out of you. At some point after my dad had passed, my mom, she did remarry. I don't remember how I felt about it. I know I wasn't like upset or angry. I just like, okay, whatever. You know, the guy was fine. I didn't have any issues because I was the favorite of the 3 kids. He made that very clear. He was very mean to my brother. I don't think he was very nice to my sister either, but he was always fine to me. And you know, he would take me to some of my gymnastics meets, which was cool because I'd never had a parent really go to them before. I'd always just like, you know, tag along with somebody. I mean, come to find out only 2 years or so after they got married, he was having an affair. It was right before I quit gymnastics when they got divorced. My only memories of like that section of childhood are like my mom throwing all his stuff in the front yard and like yelling and fighting, and which as a 10, 11-year-old, that's a lot to bear. Like you're keeping a secret. The person that, you know, you've come to like because they're so kind to you, find out he's not who you thought. That's pretty much the whole synopsis of like what I kind of felt or feel about that whole like few years. And then as my mom was like cleaning out his stuff, come to find out he was into child porn. It's another situation where if you're a parent, you find that out, you're tearing down the wall to make sure nothing happened to your kids. And I just remember I was like, I think I was playing Super Smash Brothers with my sister, and my mom came in and was like, won't believe what I found, tells us. And that was the entire extent of any questioning, any asking, hey, was he ever inappropriate with you? Anything, just a single sentence, can you believe it? And then he wasn't allowed to have contact with us till we were 18. That's all I know. Never heard from him again. We saw him one day, we saw my mom throwing his stuff out, never saw or heard from him again. A divorce is traumatic in a kid's life, period, but I feel like that was an especially like kind of what the fuck is going on type situation. When we went from, you know, stable, very unstable, fending for yourself at 6, oh, maybe we're stable again, to even less stable than we were before. And with more understanding, because now I'm not 6, now I'm 12, and I can like kind of put pieces together and understand, you know, adult feelings, adult emotions. And then you're just left with all of this, and you're like, this is your burden, do with it what you may, we'll never talk about it again. When I quit gymnastics, it opened up all of this free time that I'd never had in my life. What am I supposed to do? Like, what do I do with all this time? Definitely not like relax or, you know, have friends. I think the very first sport I did after gymnastics was track through my middle school. Middle school was the first opportunity to try like school sports for us. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna try everything. So I started in band, which I know isn't a sport, but band was like my thing then. Did track and field, loved it. I did track and field for 4 years from there, kind of just in the background. And then in middle school, I met a girl who went to the gym that I ended up going to for cheerleading and having a job at. She's like, hey, come try this. You like gymnastics, you're good at flips. Gymnasts are always good cheerleaders, like come try it. So I did, I loved it. And the owner of that gym did CrossFit. And this was like 2011 maybe, very early days of CrossFit. And he was like, he would kind of put us through CrossFit style workouts at the end as our like conditioning. So we're doing like an AMRAP of something, or like 10 rounds of run some laps, do some burpees, whatever. And I loved it. And I was so good at it. I remember I was like, made it my personal mission to like beat everybody at it. And he was like, you should come to the gym with me. I think you'd really like this thing I do called CrossFit. I was like, okay. And I dabbled in lifting for school. I just wanted to try it because I, you know, stuck my fingers in everything when I finally had time. So I knew what a clean was. I did not know what a snatch was. I knew we only did bench and clean. I was not good. I was just like a little skinny string bean. But he took me to, it was called Ultimate CrossFit at the time. And day one, I loved it. It was so fun. At that point, I was having a really hard time in high school. I hated it. I only liked it for the sports and band. So I did something that we had called dual enrollment. So I did my freshman, sophomore year of high school. I have almost no memory of that. I just don't remember any of it. I did my junior, senior year at a community college. So I took all my classes on Tuesday, Thursday, so that I could wake up, go to CrossFit, go to work, go to cheer practice. That was my day. Once I started CrossFit, I got so much stronger and so much like more powerful and a better athlete in general. And I remember around the time after I started CrossFit, my coach introduced me, it's called partner stunning. Traditionally, it's male-based female flyer. It's like what you see in like college cheer, where it's like one guy, one girl. You don't have like a whole team of bases underneath. So I started doing that and I was, getting the hang of it. I started getting good at it and we put it in our routine. That was my first taste of like, I guess being recognized for something, for a sport, because at that time I was the first girl to do it. There was a couple girls in college that did it, and I think acro and tumbling was just starting to come around, so some of it was there. But as far as all-star cheerleading, nobody was doing one-man stunting or partner stunting. And so that year that I competed like a partner stunt on stage with the team was kind of when I started getting like a following. It was so long ago, but I want to say by the time I was done with cheer, I had at least like 50,000 followers, just because of like kind of the notoriety from being the first to do that and kind of start that like the trend of it being more popular for female to female partner stunning. For cheerleading, I competed at the world level, competed at the world championships 4 times, 2 different teams. I got recruited for a world champion team for my very last year, because you can only compete until you're 18 in like standard divisions. I got recruited to compete for this team called Brandon All-Stars that had won worlds before. So I was like, and then from there, I'd already kind of started dabbling in lifting a little bit more at like the very tail end of my cheerleading career. And then after I finished cheerleading, I had a little bit, more time. I was like, I'm gonna try weightlifting. And I think once I did that, I kind of never went back to CrossFit. 2012, I was doing CrossFit and cheerleading. I was more comfortable with CrossFit, and I decided to do the Open for the first time in 2013. The Open for me was really exciting, so it was kind of like a competition. I love that energy. It's what I'm used to. It's what I've always done. But I didn't have a ton of experience with like anything beyond just doing the CrossFit classes every day. So I did the Open in 2013. Back then there was no teen division, there wasn't a youth division. So they took basically all of the kids under 18, pulled them from the leaderboard and had like a ranking of them, and it was like an invite only, do you want to go to the games? And at that point, like I had seen the games. I think that was the era of, for sure, Annie, because she was my favorite. I think Camille, Rich, all of those like, legends. I was like, I would love to go there one day. And that's like, I know, like 6 months into CrossFit, you're just learning about these people. And then I get an invite to the games. It was the teen gauntlet at the CrossFit Games. But I mean, it's the same experience. You got like a little bit of outfitting, you got to compete at the games. And this was in Carson. I'm pretty sure it was just one day. You just went, there was 3 or 4 workouts. And the last one was a max clean. And I remember like, I wasn't good at weightlifting yet, but I knew I'd been focusing on weightlifting a little bit. So I knew I'd probably be stronger than the other kids. I ended up winning. So like my first CrossFit Open, got an invite to the games, won. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to the real CrossFit Games. I'm gonna be a CrossFit Games champion. And I did stick around in CrossFit for a little bit, and I dabbled here and there, but I was still also dabbling in weightlifting. And I went to my first junior nationals the next year. So that was summer of 2013. Early, like January of 2014, I went to a junior nationals because why not? I qualified, I'm gonna go see what it is, never been. And I ended up getting ranked dead last, I think. I mean, not dead last on the international ranking. I got, I think, 3rd overall. And I remember I saw a USA singlet there. I saw someone like warming up with one. I was like, ooh, where do you buy that? Where do you get that? I want one of those. And my coach was like, oh, if you make Team USA, they give you one. Like, you can't buy that. You have to make Team USA to get that. And I was like, oh, sick. I want that singlet. And so after I came home, saw I was on the ranking, I was like, oh, I'll just go up the ranking. And I didn't know anything about weight classes then. I was in the 69 weight class, I weighed in at 63.05. I was like, oh, I should have been a 63 and I would have been on the ranking. So I think it was Maybe 2 weeks later, there was last chance qualifier in California. I didn't have any money, so I did a GoFundMe to buy a Spirit plane ticket to fly out all by myself to California, compete in the actual category I should have competed in. I think I like PR'd everything, came home from that, and I was ranked the #1 junior going to Junior Worlds in Russia. It was my first international event. In 2014, the era of women's weightlifting was not here yet, had not arrived. I remember on the senior level, if there was a female that got into the A session, like crazy, unheard of. So I was in the B session at the Junior Worlds. I remember at the time I was close to like a junior American record. So I tried to go for that, was like so disappointed. And like when I watch videos now, I was like, who let me even try that? Like that was not even close. That was 2014. Went to Junior Pan Ams a few months later, and since that Worlds, I've gone to every single Worlds, Pan Ams, or major international event since. I got invited to go to the Olympic Training Center, and they flew me out for a camp. You stay in the dorm, you get to train twice a day, they have a dining hall, they feed you, you have recovery centers, and I was like, this is the dream. I'm gonna do everything I can to come live here. At that point, I think I had just turned 18, but I'd moved out when I was 17. So I had my own apartment, I was living by myself, obviously working a ton to, try to pay rent. I remember I went home from that training camp and I said, I'm gonna be serious about this. And to be serious about this, I can't work this many hours. I need to do something so that I could focus on training. Bit the bullet. I knew there was only about a year and a half left to qualify for the 2016 Olympics. Basically everything that was not weightlifting didn't matter anymore. I remember I did Wadapalooza in 2015 as my absolute last CrossFit event. I said, this is my last hurrah. After this, I'm done. I can't be intermingling the training. RX team, we won. And I was hurting, but we won.
Was the goal to make the 2016 Olympics?
Yeah, at that point, I knew probably around mid-2015 that I had kind of an outside shot to make the 2016 team. Going into the 2016 Olympic trials, I was ranked #2. If you look at that ranking list, 1 and 2 would be going to the Olympics, and the 3rd spot was somewhere further down, but they couldn't be touched. It didn't matter where they were ranked. Going into the trials, I was kind of more on the defensive. I couldn't let anybody else bump me. If I moved from the 2nd spot, I was not going to the Olympics.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
She can snatch one. Well, there you have it.
That's
A new American record, snatched 106 kilos. Mattie Rogers, and she smoked this.
That meant at that time I had to kind of fend off one of our 48s. She had exactly the day that she needed, which meant I had to, I think the number was put 11 kilos on my total.
excellent clean.
And that'll be good. That's a good jerk.
It's a good jerk.
But at the moment, this is not enough to put her on the team.
From being bumped to 3rd back up to 2nd, it was a huge amount. That it would have been a 11, 12 kilo American record, which for context, usually you beat that 1 kilo at a time over years. That's just not something that happens. Basically what we did, I made my first clean and jerk, and we just put what we needed on the bar. And that was 141. The current American record at the time was 133. I had to increase it that much. And I'd never even deadlifted that amount at that time. I went to pull it, and I think part of me knew there was no way I was gonna make it, but I was gonna try.
I have a feeling she's going to be on the Olympic team in 2020.
I hope so. This is, without a doubt, one of our brightest stars in weightlifting. Mattie Rogers has been as good as any lifter could possibly hope to be. I mean, in this country, what she has done over the last 2 years has been nothing short of amazing.
And one of the supers that was in the session, who's also an Olympian, Holly Mangold, I remember she had missed her attempts, and she knew what I was trying to do, and she basically changed her attempt so that I wouldn't have to wait for her, because I'd been sitting. And I literally will never forget it, because I think she ended up bombing because of that. She'd missed 2 clean and jerks, would have had to repeat, and just went up so that I could go. and she like kind of let me have a more ideal situation to at least take a crack at that. And that's like so respectable. I still had a total, but it didn't matter. At the end of the event, I ended up being awarded best lifter, which is pound for pound, you lifted the most, which kind of at that point just kind of felt like twisting the knife because I already knew I didn't make the Olympics. And they're like, oh, but you won best lifter at the Olympic trials. To me, I was like, that does literally means nothing. Like if anything, it made me bitter and kind of jaded and upset. I have clearly shown I am the best lifter out of this group. This was the group and I won the best lifter. And you're telling me that's not good enough. When I was a gymnast, I always wanted to go to the Olympics. I had like a Build-A-Bear. I was named Carly Patterson because she was my favorite Olympic gymnast. Any sport that I did, I was like, I want to go to the Olympics. I want to go to the Olympics. And there's also a letter that my dad had left me. A line of it says, I can't wait to watch you at the Olympics one day in whatever sport you choose. Not only was it like my goal, but it was something that I guess I made known when I was 5. But it was also kind of like with that, because I got that note when I was 18. I got that note right before I started qualifying for the 2016 Olympics. And for that kind of like lit an extra match. I already had a match lit, but knowing that my dad had also seen that in me and wanted that for me kind of gave me a little bit more fire. I knew my Olympic dreams weren't over because I was so new. And I just took that and I was like, I'll just be kind of the front runner for the next Olympics. I'll be like, I was already the best lifter. I'm getting off to more or less a head start, and it was just back to training. 2017 was the first full year of regular international competition after the Rio Olympics. And that was when my medal streak started. 2017, I medaled at my first Worlds. I medaled at Pan Ams. I'd medaled at the Pan Ams previously. I've medaled at everyone since 2015, but 2017 specifically was when I was kind of on my like anger-fueled rampage, I guess. I medaled at Worlds 2017, 2018, 2019, 2021, or 2020, which I don't even remember how they changed it, but I medaled at every single Worlds. And I think at the time the record was 3 consecutive Worlds. And so I broke that. I think something I didn't expect in the 2020 quad was kind of the explosion of the women's era in USA weightlifting specifically. The talent pool was bigger, whether it's from exposure from CrossFit, the internet being more of a thing and people can see strong women in ways that they hadn't before. But there were so many young athletes coming in. And starting 2020, I was like, I'm the front runner. I didn't think I was coasting, but I thought I had like a kind of a cushion behind me. And there were just like every event, there was like more new people, new American records. Everything was just like exploding so quickly. And you have people like Olivia Reeves coming into the scene. And you're like, these are lifts that have never been done before by an American, by anyone in the world, period. Like American women used to not be able to stack up to international lifters because we're not on drugs. And we just don't have the training culture that they have in these other countries. And now all of a sudden, like we're medaling in all kinds of events and divisions that we didn't before. And I quickly realized I did not have the kind of cushion that I thought I did.
What American records do you break?
All of them. I broke every junior, senior American record in the 69, 71, 76, 81, all of them. They've since been rebroken by various people, but at that time, I held all of them. From when COVID started to about May of 2020, we had no idea if the Olympics were even going to happen. So eventually they released new procedures. We thought we were done qualifying, but we had new events that we had to go to continue qualifying. And it was announced that they were pushing the Olympics an entire year. So our 2-year qualifying period turned into a 3-year qualifying period. And when we all thought we were done, honestly, I don't remember when I got officially secured, which is kind of a bummer when I think about it, because there was no competition where I could like drop a lift and be like, yeah, I made the Olympics. Because I'm pretty sure the final qualification event if the Olympics happened on schedule, got canceled because of COVID. And that would have been the one where it's like, yeah, I made it. I do remember I was in between sessions, I was doing a double day, and I opened up an email that was like, hey, you're one of the 4 that made it. Stay tuned because we don't know how to maintain eligibility with the new Olympic date. Hi, I just wanted to jump on here between my training sessions today because you may or may not have seen that the Olympic team has been named. And my name is on there. I think if I tried to type everything I want to say, it would take me like 8 days and nobody reads that anyway. I know this feels like so cheesy making this. It's like, thank you for my awards. But that's not what this is. I feel like very overwhelmed with just gratitude and emotions right now. And I'm gonna try really hard to get stronger, get better, and just make some lifts at the Olympics.
That was your dream ride. What did it feel like?
I think the overarching feeling was relief. Every time I think about it, it's a little sad for me, just because it was in the heat of COVID. Right when lockdown had happened, nobody knew what was going on, nobody knew how long we were gonna be in that. And then you get the news you've been waiting for your whole life and you've been working for, but it's like you have no idea how to get from the point where the entire world is locked down to going and competing at this massive world event.
A long wait for Mattie Rogers. The disappointment in 2016 did not qualify at trials, failed to hit her final clean and jerk, but here she is now 5 years later at her very first Olympics. It's been a long wait to make the Olympic stage. Mattie Rogers to jerk it for a total score.
Yes, yes, yes.
The adjustments, she knows it. 3 white lights and leaving it all on the platform in Tokyo. Mattie Rogers with a clean and jerk of 138. It might not be a medal, but it's a long journey realized at the Olympics.
Wow. I cannot even begin to describe what it takes for an athlete to be able to come out here and keep it's a tremendous amount of weight on a tremendous stage. It's been a while since she's even attempted a jerk. She's missed her last couple cleans. She's cold from the shoulder overhead. She had to do so much there. I am so proud. Congratulations to the American coaches there. Much relief.
After everything was done, I still ended up getting a total. I'm grateful for that because it was one of those like kind of clutch, only made my 3rd attempt clean and jerk situations. And I ended up in 6th in the world in the 87 kilo weight class. And I do remember being so pissed that even that terrible day, that 6th place total, would have been bronze in my actual body weight category. I had known that my mental health had been an issue the entirety of my 20s, but it was one of those things like, just push, like, I'll deal with it later. I don't have time, I'll deal with it later, I'll deal with it later. And then after the Olympics, it became something that I couldn't deal with later. Like, I was afraid to kind of dive into that and start like the journey of therapy and medication if I needed it, because I didn't know if that would change kind of like my motivation and my drive. Like, I knew that like fear and anxiety and anger in part fueled my work ethic and my motivation, and I was worried if I took that away, I would be less of an athlete, or I wouldn't be as motivated, or I wouldn't be as disciplined, and I'd be more like, oh yeah, no, it's fine. Like, I wouldn't have that fire that I had. So I was afraid to make that change, but after the Olympics, I knew I had to. It wasn't something I could just put on the back burner. Immediately, I think literally the day I got home, met with a therapist, met with a psychiatrist, and we started the journey of finding the right medication for me, getting a diagnosis, all of the things that go into kind of starting to tackle your mental health. There wasn't a whole lot of, downtime, transition time. I came home and I was like, let's get back to work. I thought I was the front runner going into Tokyo. I was wrong. I'm definitely not in that position this time, so it's gonna be even harder. And I knew I just had to put my head down and get to work. In the qualifying for 2020, one of the things that I realized I needed to change was I needed a different coach. I had been with the coach who I started with up until that point. but it had just become a lot of me working by myself.
I don't like to talk about my accolades, you know this. My name is Amy Anaya Everett, and I am a senior international weightlifting coach for United States Weightlifting, USAW. Mattie and I did know of each other because, you know, we were in the same competitions. Sometimes I was coaching another athlete, and so I knew of her and I knew her coach, but we never like really spoke, I guess. I remember one time she bombed out. I can't remember what the meet was, and she was crying. She wasn't my athlete, and I walked over and just said, you know, even though you didn't make those lifts, you're still an inspiration. I remember that. She probably doesn't remember that. She had a competition. It was at an AO2. That competition at the time, I think it was in 2018, was like a last chance qualifier for Worlds, and she had to make sure she stayed on the world team to remain eligible for the Olympics. And her coach couldn't be at that competition, so he had texted me and asked if I was going, and I was, because I had other athletes that were doing the world team trials. He asked if I could coach her there, and so I agreed, and then I coached her at that competition.
I met Amy. She handled me really well. She was great. I met some of the Catalyst team out there, and they knew that I was kind of struggling at home. I was training by myself all the time. At that time, I was also programming for myself, and it just went unnoticed. Like, I knew that wasn't gonna get me to the Olympics. And so some of the team was like, hey, you should come to like a training camp with us and just like hang out. So that was at Amy and Greg's house. And I went there, and immediately I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, having attention, having eyes on me. I was there for a week. I sat on it, and as Amy was bringing me to the airport, because it's very specific how you have to go about changing coaches at the high level so that like nobody can be accused of poaching, whatever.
And in the very last day, I was getting ready to take her to the airport, and she was sitting at the kitchen counter, and she said, so I was wondering if I can ask you something. I was like, sure, what's up? And she's like,
what do you think about maybe being my coach? And she's like,
what the fuck are you talking about? You know? And I was like, I'm literally getting ready to take you to the airport, and you drop this bomb on me right now.
Why did you wait until now? And I was like, okay, see ya. Because I wanted her to have as little time as possible between me telling my coach this, and I want to do it in person. So I told her, got on the airplane, it was a red-eye flight, landed at the airport, went to the gym, talked to my previous coach, and I was like, hey, this is what I need to do for my career. Thought it was fine. It ended up being very not fine, but then I was with Amy from that point on.
And now people call us the dream team.
How did he take it?
I thought he took it suspiciously well. I was like, yeah, like totally get it. And I'd never worked remotely with a coach before, so I'm like, I'm videoing my lifts and sending them to Amy. Then he starts getting upset with me for texting in the gym, and I was like, how can you, I'm an adult, like I'm allowed to use my phone. And he's like, it's disrespectful to text another coach while you're in my gym. And I was like, we talked about this. And long story short, I was essentially kicked out of the gym 2 weeks before Worlds. I worked at a deal where I could come in off hours where he wasn't there, nobody was there, because it was disrespectful to talk to another coach in that gym. It was his gym, his rules. So I finished out training for Worlds there, and that was the last he's ever spoken to me.
I wanted to make sure that I could help her. If I didn't feel that I could be a service to her or help her in the ways that she needed help, then I didn't want to say yes, because I didn't want to do her a disservice. And I wasn't going to take her just because she was Mattie Rogers, because I just didn't give a shit.
There's a lot of controversy because everyone thought there was a lot more drama than there was.
In that moment, I saw her as a person that was asking me for help. And I took that very seriously, because I knew that she felt like she was drowning, and I wanted to make sure that I could be someone to throw her that life vest. And if I wasn't, then I didn't want to be misleading in any way.
Sure, there was drama after the exchange had happened. I thought it was a clean, respectful split. I did everything by the book to change coaches, and I understand there's feelings. Like, I could be upset. I was like kind of close to making the Olympics, and that was like also his dream. of being like an Olympic coach, but the internet just took it and ran with it and like made these just crazy accusations. None of it was true, and everyone kind of thought like, oh, well, this is the end of her career. This is the end of it.
There was a lot of trash talking. There were a lot of people saying that I didn't know what I was doing and that I was going to ruin her career and that was it. Mattie Rogers was over, and they couldn't believe that she chose me.
Within the first 6 months, I very much proved that it was the best decision I could have made in my career. And I think some of that drama, my previous coach went on some podcasts and just dragged me through the mud. And that's not something that I did. And I felt like I was being very respectful. And when I heard the podcast, I tried to call, I tried to reach out. I said, hey, I've done you the service of not speaking publicly about this in any way. I assumed you would do the same. It's a personal matter. No. He basically went on podcast saying mean things from someone I wouldn't have expected it from at the time. At 21 was kind of the beginning of my understanding of my mental health issues. I was very much not in a good spot. You know, I met this person who was kind of nice to me sometimes, said they loved me, and I was like, okay, that's probably what love is. That's good enough. I was young, and I don't think I knew any other definition of compatibility or love. I just took what I got, and I was like, this is probably right. So by the time I got married right after the Olympics, I had already, seen and ignored plenty of red flags.
I had known that she had some mental health issues. She was going through a lot. That was a really tough year after that. It was a lot to admit and to deal with her mental health. And she's been very public about it, and I'm very proud of her. I've always encouraged her. So many women and kids look up to her, and men. And she has such a reach, and I've encouraged her to be honest about it because she has the ability to say, it's okay to have these mental health issues, and you can still be a good weightlifter, a good person, and it doesn't make you weak.
I didn't know what proper treatment was because I'd never had that, whether from family or relationships. I'd never known what love felt like. I didn't know how to give or receive love. As the relationship kind of progressed, it turned more angry and more emotionally abusive. Sounds aggressive, but I think I have to just face that that's what it was.
I kept my mouth shut about it for a long time because I was just respecting boundaries, and I knew it wasn't my place to tell her, this isn't normal. This isn't a normal relationship.
It just got worse and worse. Every day, every month, every year was worse treatment than before. I was constantly getting reprimanded, being told I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm this, that. If I didn't perform well, whatever it was, there'd be an argument, and it would always come back to me. Everything was me. Everything was my fault, and I believed that.
A lot of things that were happening in her relationship, she just thought that's what it was. One of the things that I feel like I've taught her is how it feels to be loved and what it feels like to love. She has a really hard time showing it still, but she shows it in her own ways.
Eventually, I started to realize, oh, this is not what a person is supposed to be treated like. You're not supposed to be treated like shit and call it love. That's not what love is. That's not support, and that's not love. It took me a lot of years, but I finally was like, hey, I'm not gonna tolerate this. I'm not gonna tolerate being treated like this. And that's when things really, really took a turn for the worse.
I went to her one day and I said, this is not healthy. This isn't good. And I hate him. And these are the reasons why. And I knew in that moment that it was either going to help her or it was going to be the end of our relationship. Even if it risked ruining our relationship or me not being her coach or in her life anymore, I knew that I had to do something to try to save her.
I didn't feel safe in my own home. I didn't feel worthy. It was put on me like what's wrong with you? Why are you doing this? Like, you're ruining everything. You're married and you're choosing to break that apart, come to the end of things. I was crazy because I was on medication for my mental illnesses. Point blank on paper, I have anxiety and depression with panic disorder. I'm on the absolute lowest dose of an SSRI. And it was painted like I basically went into like a drug-induced psychosis, and I'm on this cocktail of medication that's making me say these things and do these things. Eventually, it turned extremely violent to the point where I would lock myself in a room to get away. I wouldn't come out to eat. It just got to the point where I felt like there was never an end that would be in my favor, so that the only way that I could control it was if I made the end myself. And that was the only way that I could get out of the situation that I was in a way that I had a say. And as someone who I struggled with self-harm all through my teenage years, got a handle on it, it like flipped everything back and I started self-harming again. My suicidal ideation was something I very barely had control of. I feel lucky that I was in therapy at that time because I hid it for a while, but I did eventually talk to her about it. Kind of dehumanizing, because you mentioned that in therapy, and it's their job to make sure you don't, follow through with any plans, do anything. I had to sign it's called a suicide contract. I had to remove sharp objects from my immediate space. I had to share that contract with roommates on international trips, because through all of this, I'm still competing. I'm still trying to qualify for the 2024 Olympics.
Things got worse, and there was a time where every morning I woke up and I was worried that she was gonna be dead. And I would text her and say, checking in. And she would text back and say, alive.
I didn't even tell Amy for a long time until she saw it firsthand, because she came to my house to fly out to Pan Am's with me, and she saw what was going on.
Think you were not gonna make it?
Many times. My memory is very blurry of that whole section of years. One time specifically where I was self-harming, I knew if I could get up off the floor to get something sharper, I would die. And the only reason that I didn't is because I was so stuck feeling just on the floor doing what I was doing, where I physically could not get myself off the floor to go get a sharper object, and all I had access to were shitty craft scissors, and it wasn't working.
So the only person that knew of this was Amy?
Yeah, and I never told her the extent of it, because I think if you know Amy, you know she's a worrier by nature. I was having a hard enough time managing myself, and I felt like the more that I told her, the more I also had to use energy to reassure her that I was okay, which I wasn't. I didn't know if I would be, so I'm having to pretend to be positive and be like, I'm fine, it's okay. Send me my training, I'll go do it. And I did every day, every single day, did my training as written, regardless of what was happening, every day. She knew it was bad, but I think it helped that I was able to get through my training for her to be like, okay, she's okay.
Through all of this, she was still training, and she was training very well, which is insane to me how well she was training through this very unhealthy relationship and everything she had to go through in her personal life. She was in survival mode, and she just woke up every day and she just did what she had to do because she had to do it.
How do you make it through?
A little bit of luck, and honestly, I don't know. I don't know how I managed to come out of that as unscathed as I am. I mean, sure, there's tons of damage and trauma. The fact that I'm here is just I'm just so grateful for that. And it's something that I didn't tell anyone, and I just held it in to myself and tried to deal with it myself. And the life that I have now is so vastly different and so just 180 better. And it's not a life that I ever foresaw me having in any other scenario.
Once we got her out of the house, I feel like her body took a big deep breath. And it was almost like her flight or fight response just turned off. And her body was just like, and her mind was just like, oh, I'm safe and I'm free. And once that happened, that's when the injury really revealed itself.
In October of 2023, I moved to Pensacola, Florida to basically start my whole life over from scratch. Moved all of my things, all of my gym, and just kind of put it all in storage and came here. Started training out of a CrossFit gym, Mako Athletics. I'd come and I'd visited the gym before, so I kind of had made some friends, some acquaintances. It wasn't completely going in blind. And it was the first time that I was training around people for probably, since before COVID. I trained exclusively by myself. I controlled every aspect of my environment. And then training into a CrossFit gym was like the most overstimulating experience because there's just other people, other sounds, other movements. There's just a lot happening, and that was an adjustment in itself. But Pensacola as a whole, I had never been here before. As a born and raised Florida girl, I expected it. Oh, it's just gonna be just like Orlando, but it's night and day, a whole different vibe. Like, it's a beach town, but it's a military town, and there's seasons and there's good weather, and it's not so like hot and swampy and like stagnant. And it just feels like a very, kind of like a freeing place to be. It feels like home. But at the time, I was starting to have real issues with my injury. My hip had started hurting probably back in maybe May or June of that year, but when you're in Olympic qualification, like, it doesn't matter. If you can still train and you can still lift, you're lifting. You don't have the time to take a step back, or I didn't even want to get imaging because I didn't want to know the extent of what the injury was, just in case it was something bad, because I was going to ignore it anyway. Even if a doctor said, you cannot lift, this is like detrimental, stop now, I don't think I would have listened. After Worlds, when I came home, I moved, I started kind of settling into my new life. It got to a point where it wasn't something that I could push through. And I think I have a really high pain tolerance. I think everybody says that, but I think I'm really good at kind of like compartmentalizing, understanding this is going to hurt, this hurts, that's okay, doing it anyway. And it was to the point where I was losing function of that whole side of my leg, that whole leg, that whole like side of my body. And that's not something that I could push through. So at that point I decided, okay, this is probably maybe November, December, let me start getting this looked at because it's only getting worse. If I want any shot at the Olympics, like, I need to get this sorted, or at least get some sort of, plan in place. So from December to about February, I was in and out of all kinds of doctors. We got all kinds of opinions, all kinds of imaging, and it took a long time to figure out what it was. And the whole time I'm still training, I'm still competing, I just couldn't ignore it. I lost all kind of bladder control, core control, bowel control. Of course it hurt, but it was the loss of strength and control that really became the issue, because I would go to do a lift and I would go to push that leg and there was just no response from it. So we eventually figured out it was nerve related. How or why, we didn't know, but there was nerve damage. Once we saw that, and I know just from my own schooling how long it takes for nerves to kind of come back around and heal, along with all of the recommendations from doctors and PTs, like, it wasn't something that was going to be solved in time, and not even remotely solved in time to keep trying for the Olympics. So that was ultimately when I made the decision to withdraw. I didn't know what the healing process would look like, if I would even be able to get back to where I was, never mind get better than that. So it was kind of just like everything just came to a screeching halt. Future planning in the sport, all of that was just on a hard pause. I was in pain outside of training, not even just training, just existing. I wasn't sleeping. By the time I made the announcement, I think I'd come to terms with it a good bit, and it was more like relief at that point. because I think I knew almost a solid month before there's no chance. I knew somewhere in there, even if I didn't want to acknowledge it, and that announcement kind of almost forced me to acknowledge it because other people now knew. And while it was hard, at the same time it was relief because I knew I could kind of get out of that cycle that I was in of just constant disappointment, being upset, being stressed about it, and just being miserable every day in training.
Did people think that was it for you?
I don't know what other people thought as far as the rest of my career, nor do I care. I honestly had no idea. My sole goal when I did take that step back was to get all of my function back that I had lost. And that's not in terms of athletic performance, elite athletic performance, just as a functioning human. Like, there was so much work to get over the feelings that I'd gotten used to of just like kind of being on eggshells that I didn't even want to look at weightlifting. And I knew if I couldn't get back to wanting to lift and coming into the gym and not being afraid to go look at a bar, there was no shot. Like, I was not only not going to be elite again, but maybe not even compete ever, whether or not my body was in a good condition. So I got put in contact with a PT through a PT in our gym, CJ. He put me in contact with Will Mills. We did some very kind of thorough work right off the bat, but a lot of the recovery, the very first stuff, like I had to log every time I went to the bathroom. I had to practice breathing and bracing and doing Kegels appropriately. It was just like the smallest things, and it was very tedious initially. Like, all of the first month was just tedious, lots of reps, lots of sets, nothing with weight even. And while I was doing that, I was able to do some CrossFit workouts because I wanted to have fun still. I knew if I just only did my PT every day, it would be miserable. It's not fun work to do, it's necessary work. So I would just jump into whatever the class was every day, and I loved it. Like, I was sad when I had to stop CrossFitting because I was back to lifting more. And even initially when I was lifting, I was doing like 3 days of lifting, 2 days of CrossFit, just because I was enjoying it. Like, I was excited to go to the gym. And I think that played a big part in being able to get past fear and like hesitancy of getting back to training. And it kind of like reignited that like excitement for going to the gym again. And it was fun. When I started on May 1st, I kind of set the AO Series 2 in the end of August as my comeback to the comeback, because I've never not competed at a World Championships, and I needed that to get on the ranking and qualify for Worlds. I kind of loosely set that expectation because I just didn't know. I was literally starting from ground zero in May to August. To be in the top 10 in the country is a very lofty goal, especially considering I had no idea how my body would respond to introducing weightlifting again. But I went to AO2 in Fort Worth with the intention of just having a good day, having fun, making whatever lifts were on the bar. And I ended up hitting probably somewhere between 85 to 90% of my best, and it was enough to just sneak right on the bottom. I think I was in like maybe the 7th or 8th spot out of 10 that were on the world ranking. And so that solidified me for my, I don't know, maybe 8th world team, 8th or 9th world team, I'm not sure, which was in December. And then so from there, the goal was I could actually have kind of a true training cycle for a couple of months from August to December. When I got on that stage at AO2 and I lifted the way that I did and surprised myself, it kind of proved to myself that, one, this method and this approach that I'm trying really hard to have works, and two, I have a lot more left in me and that I wasn't done. Leading up to Worlds, I knew that I wouldn't be able to get to my 100% or where I was prior to taking that step back, but I knew I could get to maybe like 90 to 95%, and pending who was there competing, that could be enough to fight for a medal, which was kind of my sole goal because I'd had this medal streak for so long. I broke it when I was injured at the last Worlds. Like, I want to get like back into my groove of just medaling at every international event. So I kept putting that pressure on myself, even though I was trying to have this like different, relaxed, fun kind of mindset, and it was very conflicting. And I kind of had to fight back and forth with it, because I'd be like, oh, like a 105 snatch is not going to be a medal at Worlds. And then the other side would be like, well, that's okay. Like, you made it to Worlds. You didn't think you would be here. And it was very hard to find like a happy medium. Once I got to Worlds, I was excited. I was ready for a good performance. I knew it wasn't going to be like the best thing I'd ever done, but I could make all of my lifts. And I actually felt like oddly calm and like ready. Like, I almost never feel ready when I'm at an event. I always, like, the last 2 days before, it's like, oh my gosh, like, am I ready? Should I be here? All these things. And it's just like swirling chaos, and then I'm always fine. And this one I was like, oh, I feel good. I feel ready. I feel confident in my openers. Anything after that, like, it's probably gonna be stuff I haven't tried, and I feel ready for that. And so I was like, wow, it's really working. Like, my mindset and all of that like mental work that I've been doing is really working. Like, I feel so prepared. When I went out there to take my first attempt, I vividly remember like being at the chalk bucket, and it's like the lights, every venue is different, but the lights were really bright, so you can't really see much of the crowd. And I kind of like looked up and I saw some people, and there's like a section over to like this side that was like, we love you. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. And like, usually I'm so like zoned in, I don't hear that. But I was just like, I'm just so happy to be here. And I was like chalking up, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be so casual. And I really do think I took for granted how heavy the weight is. Like, yes, I was confident in it. It's a routine number, but I don't think I gave it enough weight. I missed it. And I literally was pulling, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna smoke it. And it just wasn't there, which is a weird feeling, because usually in competition when you miss, it feels heavy, or you know you did this. And I walked off and I was like, I don't know what happened. And I went for the second one, and the same thing happened. I was like, what is going on? I went for the third one. It finally felt like normal. I made it. I felt a little bit shaky, but then the judges decided it was a no lift. So then I had no snatches, and that was the first time I've ever bombed in 10 years of international competition. I just more felt disappointed that I didn't get to show how much I'd worked that year, because I didn't have a total to show for it. I didn't have a this or a that, or if I could have just made one snatch, I could have fought for a medal in the clean and jerk.
She knew what that meant. Missing those snatches was a devastating loss to, I mean, she lost her ranking, she lost her funding, we lost our travel funding, she lost her health insurance. Like that, it was a big blow.
How do you feel emotionally?
Upset, obviously. I did a fundraiser to get here because I had to figure out my own way here. My coach had to do a fundraiser to get here. All of these people helped contribute to getting me here. And I flew on like a 12-hour flight plus, and like all I had to do was make one snatch to have a total, and I couldn't even do that. So it's just like, it's just not a good feeling. Well, now I have to go back. I didn't feel like I had to, like reassess. I just had to keep working. There wasn't anything to like do differently, really. I just had to get back to work. I think there's 100 points in the last year where it could have been it for me, or for someone going through what I did. So many kind of jumping off quitting points where I can't say I didn't think about it, but I have never given up at any point. The fact that I was feeling fine, lifting better, continually improving, like all of those signs to me said to keep going. And there was never a point where I was like, well, this might be it. Like, I never felt like I had given all that I had to give, and that if I quit at any point in that year of series of events, I would regret it forever. I would never feel okay about giving up and not seeing it through, because I know I haven't put together my best package or my best self or my best athlete yet. Like, that's still this kind of like unachieved, unopened like present that I haven't done yet. I won't even consider, retiring or quitting until that feeling changes. After Worlds, I basically had to come back and figure out what was next. Usually I don't get to do the Arnold, which is this big fitness expo that kind of gives weightlifting more exposure than it normally gets because it's bodybuilding, it's strongman, it's powerlifting, it's pole fitness. There's a million other sports and people there that have never seen the sport of weightlifting. And then on top of that, the top 10 men and the top 10 women get invited to compete on the Rogue stage, which is separate from our normal weightlifting area, which is kind of like a back hallway. It's right in the middle of the main expo on a huge stage, and all of these people who have never seen weightlifting before are coming to watch. And it's not the normal like, oh, it's quiet. Like it's similar, weightlifting is similar to golf, and that when someone is on stage competing, there's a hush, everyone's quiet, you don't talk, you don't cheer. But the expo, nobody knows that. So you're out there and it's chaos and there's people, and you stand on the stage and you can see literally the entire expo hall, and it just feels electric in there. I'm pretty sure I registered for the Arnold before I even got home from Worlds because I was so just like upset at that performance, and I want a redemption. Like I not only want to do what I was supposed to do at Worlds, but I want to do more. And it turned out that the Arnold would then also be the last qualifier for Pan Ams, and since I didn't have an improved total for Worlds, I needed a better one to be able to go to Pan Ams this year. What the Arnold means now is that it's my last shot to make any international teams this year. And if I don't perform and I don't put up a total that's big enough to hold my spot on the ranking, I could be done internationally for the rest of the year. Now it's Arnold's week. I am feeling about how I normally do before any competition, which is tired, grumpy, and beat down, and that's kind of right on schedule. It's very different from how I felt at Worlds, where I felt confident and ready. This is a very familiar feeling, and I know it's kind of like the panic before the calm sets in. I'm just ready to rip it.
So far, training into the Arnold has been up and down. We've had great days and we've had very low days. And typically when you're going into a competition, you want to go into a competition at a high level of confidence and having a great training cycle. And right now we're in a position where she's like, well, I don't feel super confident and I haven't hit these numbers. And it's me being like, hey, look, have I ever not prepared you? It's going to be there when it's time to be there. You don't have to hit every lift in training to hit it in a competition.
The first step when I get to any competition is pretty much the same, kind of scout out everything, see where everything is, get my credentials. Depending on what the day is, I'll either have a rest day or a training day. So here I just came, did a light move around session, and kind of just check my weight, make sure it's in a decent range. For me, making weight is never really an issue. I'm in the 76 kilogram weight category, and I usually sit between 75 and 76. So the last day is just kind of weighing everything I eat to make sure that I'll wake up at weight or just under. So it's really easy for me, but I hit some training, I go to the hotel, relax, make sure I eat enough and also not too much, and then it's just kind of rest time till competition. The Arnolds are always in Columbus, Ohio, always in the exact same spot, the convention center with the big Arnold statue in the front. At the Arnold, with there being more people and just like other kind of fitness and lifting adjacent sports, there's a lot more, social interaction that I do. And as a not naturally super social person, it can sometimes be a little bit draining. So I try to be a little bit strategic about when I'm in that, because I know once I am in the convention center or the venue or the vicinity of it, I am open to everyone and anyone. I kind of hide a little bit. I try to avoid like main areas if I know I'm like, I have to get somewhere fast, or I'm trying to be focused, or if I'm like really anxious. I mean, it's always fine. It's always 100% fine. And I work myself up more about it than it ever is. Everyone is so nice and everyone's always very respectful of my space and my time. But it is something that it doesn't necessarily come natural to me no matter how long I'm in, this position. It's always weird, I'm always uncomfortable. So it's something I have to kind of manage with every event, but specifically at the Arnold, because it's just, the normal interactions times 10. This year our start time is in the morning, which is my preferred time. I love like a late morning weigh-in, kind of early-ish afternoon start time. I like to wake up, get some coffee, see where my weight is at beforehand, just in case, you know, anything crazy happened overnight, and just kind of leisurely get ready and make my way over to the venue. When we weigh in, from that time to the start of the competition is only 2 hours. So other kind of weight class contested sports will have different times, a whole day sometimes, but we have 2 hours from when they start weigh-ins to when they start the competition. So for most of my events, I weigh right kind of on that line of 76 kilos, which is where my body likes to live. So the morning of competition is really important to kind of weigh everything, because whatever I'm putting into my body is going to be kind of reflected in my weight that day. Coming off the last event, I was best lifter there, and in my head I knew if I did what I needed to do plus a little bit extra, I could potentially win best lifter again.
We need to do a 245, and it's on ranking, the way the new ranking is. Another athlete has a 244, so we want to at least outrank her by 1 kilo, because with the new rankings and the new weight classes, things are going to shift around, and so we just want to be in a secure spot going into, you know, making sure we're on the Pan Am team and the world team. And so the goal number is at least a 245.
Now that my weight is right on, it's time to eat a little bit, and then it's go time.
Catalyst Athletics in the 76 kilo category, Mattie Rogers.
We decided to start at 104 because I didn't want any of that kind of mental weight of 105 being the number I missed from Worlds.
I just have to keep reminding her that she is capable of those numbers and to believe in herself and to trust me.
Straight up, down. Good.
So we did 85 twice, and on her second 85, I'm going, oh shit. She didn't have the patience that she needed. She wasn't quite being intentional with her turnover. It just was a little lagging. I know her enough to know if I start saying something to her, she's gonna get into her head, because I didn't want to point out something that was going wrong, even if she knew it was going wrong. So I just kept on saying, that was amazing. Yes, we're so ready. Okay, here we go.
2-minute clocks here, or we could move very fast, like have to go on the minute. So just be prepared for anything.
I knew I could do 104. I nailed it in training a million times leading up to this. 104 was a number that I feel very comfortable with for my first snatch.
That's it. Good settle. Yes, let's go.
And I told her, you know, don't take this weight for granted. You have to pretend like those legs are rockets.
Not what's on the bar, but how to move the bar, right? You can't take it for granted, and you don't give up on those legs.
104 felt way easier than I expected it to be. It honestly, it flew, and in our plan, 107 was the next logical step because we're chasing a very specific total. So based on 104, we knew 107 was a good second attempt.
You have to stay with those legs.
Yeah,
Good?
I gotta jump harder.
You got to jump harder on this next one. If I put you to 10, are you going to jump?
107 felt just as good as 104 did, so we knew that First attempt, second attempt were absolutely mandatory. Third attempt would be kind of our bonus and in our best case scenario. So we really wanted 110 on that bar, and I went in with the mindset of anything that's on that bar I'm going to make. So we just went right for 110 for the third attempt.
Those legs need to be like bombs, okay? And you control that bar and you be confident, remember who the fuck you are.
I said to her, I want you to hang on to this and remember that we don't have to make it in training to make it in competition. But if you believe in yourself and you trust that if I put it on the bar, I know you're ready for it, then you can make it.
I know you weren't feeling great during your warm-ups, and I'm really proud of you for staying in it.
I didn't feel bad, it's just kind of hurting.
I know, I can tell. But that sets us up for success.
And I'm happy that she didn't give up on her pole. I told her, even if it feels heavy off the floor, you don't give up.
110 was a number that I hadn't even touched in training, and it felt just as light as my opener did. It flew up. I knew by the time that I was pulling under the bar that I had it, and it felt even better to make it in front of that crowd. Everyone went crazy. I went crazy. Amy went crazy. The job is very much not done yet. We absolutely need my first and second planned clean and jerk attempts to get the total. Otherwise, anything else I do, it doesn't matter.
Up, come on, reach up front foot. Beautiful jerk. Okay. To here, if you shift back, remember where we're gonna go, and then our hips have to go back. That's why they couldn't get under you and it was hard to stand up. That's it. That's it. You see the difference? You feel good for 32 still? Huh?
It sets us up better for 32.
It does. But I need you confident in your head. That was exactly right. Did you feel the difference? Okay, whole foot, over, 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 up, up, up.
We decided on 132 for my opener because it was what my projected opener at Worlds was supposed to be that we moved. It set me up for the second attempt that was absolutely the do or die attempt that I needed to make for that total.
Come on, you're the best. Remember who the fuck you are. Let's go.
I was the most nervous for the opener because it was more of a stepping stone. The opener didn't mean anything at all. So I had to nail the opener and get the confidence from nailing that to go into my second and third attempt. So once I made that opener, it was time for 135, and 135 is the number that, because I hit that 110 snatch, I absolutely needed that for the 245 total for the ranking for Pan Ams.
Now we call 135 to the bar, and this is the clean and jerk that she has to have to make her 245 total. She's set up so well because had she not snatched 110, she would have needed a bigger clean and jerk. She snatched 110, she needs 135 to get her 245.
135 is a number that I have not hit in training leading up to this at all. I have tried it, I have missed it. I missed it at Worlds. I missed everything around it.
I can see her focusing, she's closing her eyes, she's doing her breathing. I go over and I remind her, hey, this is the lift that you need. You just make this and we're done. And then the third lift is just for you.
This is a lift that will basically make or break the rest of my year.
I whisper in her ear, remind her how great she is and how strong she is and how prepared she is.
Come on, you're the best. Come on, you're the best. Over, 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 up, up, up. Use those legs.
I feel nervous going into the 135 just because of how much it means for not only this day, but the rest of my year. Knowing that I haven't hit this number in training and I have missed it in competition, it puts even more pressure than necessary. Everything that I've been working towards is for this lift.
No, I want to know what in your head that you know you could go rage at based on how that felt.
I mean, that felt heavy off the floor, but it didn't feel that bad, so whatever you want. I don't care. I don't want to make the decision.
I'm going to go to 40, but you cannot hesitate off the floor. It's going to be heavy. It's weightlifting. You have to trust your legs, okay? Because we made the total we needed right now, so we might as well go for it because then we're going to get a real fat total.
I hit it, but I had to immediately manage my emotions because I still had another lift. If I got too excited and too, like pumped for that one lift, it would be really hard to then turn it around following myself on a 2-minute clock and do another lift. It's another lift that I haven't touched, I haven't made. But I know in my training, I've been preparing for this and I'm strong enough and pumped for that one lift. It would be really hard to then turn it around following myself on a 2-minute clock and do another lift. It's another lift that I haven't touched, I haven't made. And I didn't want to throw away a third attempt because every kilo counts. This total also will carry into my Worlds ranking for later in the year. And in the back of my mind, I still want to win that Best Lifter award.
I would never put 140 on if I didn't believe you could make it. But you have to trust that pull when you pass your knees, okay? You have to use those legs like we've been learning.
I knew in my head before we even got to the Arnold that my best case scenario third attempts would be 110 and 140. I knew those were numbers that were kind of a reach, but with, a taper, adrenaline, a crowd, they were numbers that I felt I could go after and give a really solid attempt, if not make them. Amy asked me what I wanted, which is kind of normal in our routine. If we hit our goal on a second attempt, third attempts, she'll ask me what I want. I knew if I didn't say 140 and I made it, so say I said 37, 38 and I made it, I would have regret that I didn't go for 40. No hesitation, I just said 140.
Don't stop fighting that whole pull. All right. You use all the energy and all the power out there. Use everyone's energy. Come on.
This 140 is the lift that will secure me for Worlds for the rest of the year and gives me the best shot at being best lifter at the Arnold. did not know I was gonna make that. I was pulling it and I think the bar was somewhere around like my knees, so maybe like a couple inches off the floor, and I was like, oh God. It felt so heavy. I'm pretty sure it was my worst positions I've ever been in, but I knew if I could get my body under the bar, I had a chance at standing up. I mean, that was as max effort as it could get for that clean.
I told her that it's gonna feel heavy, but you don't stop. And she didn't give up. And so she did it. There we go, 250 total, 5 kilos under her all-time best total. And then I said, I think it's okay to say you're back now.
That lift ended up securing me as best lifter at the Arnold. That 140 to me more felt like the I'm back lift to me, more than any other lift that I'd done in the last, 6 to 8 months. Doing the 140 and the combination of the 110 and the 140, that felt like, okay, like this is a much more complete picture of everything I've been working on. This is where I am, this is who I am, and this is kind of the jumping off performance for the rest of the year.
I think for me, I was just so proud in that moment, like, okay, you did it. You, meaning her, not me. She did it. She did what she needed to do. And coming off a bomb out at Worlds, which is the first time she's ever bombed out at an international competition, that was a hard blow already. It's embarrassing. It doesn't showcase all your hard work. It's just such an embarrassing, sucky thing to go through, let alone bombing out and losing all your funding and losing all your ranking and losing everything. And my most important goal for this meet, yes, I had a goal, and my goal to do 110 and 140. Yes, we have the goal to do a 245 so that we can get back in a really good place on ranking. But my goal for her was to remember who she was. And I feel like that's been forgotten a little bit and overshadowed. And she's dealing with a lot of emotions and a lot of confusion and a lot of frustration and a lot of anger and all of these things coming back from the injury and then losing her ranking and, all of those things. And I wanted something to remind her. Now, this ranking at this competition, it doesn't get her funding back. It doesn't do anything as far as the total ranking. It doesn't change where she's at, but it does secure her spot on the Pan Am team, and it does secure her spot on the world team. I wanted her to be able to pull up that world team ranking and see how high her name was on that list and be like, oh, okay, I am not ready to be taken out to pasture yet. Like, I still have stuff in me. I'm still can do this. I am still good, and I still have room for improvement. That total, after not doing it over a year, shows that not only is she ready for that, obviously, but ready for more. And not only that, but making all of her 6 lifts here after a bomb out. She just did a local meet where she made all 6 lifts. When she did the AO2, which was a very important meet for her, it was her first meet back after her injury. She had to go do that to even get on the world team. She went there, she did her total, she got 6 for 6. So now, with the exception of Worlds, that's 3 meets, 2 of them very high pressure, where she went 6 for 6. She's continuously increasing her total. And this is one of those things that now, this competition here is what we can think about. Worlds has to be gone. We have to have amnesia about Worlds. As long as you focus on the little things and you go in every day and you do what you can and you focus on the things that you're doing right and building those things that you're doing right and continuing to get better and not let the doubt and the fear and what went wrong and the misses and the mistakes overshadow all the good things, then this is where you can be. And that's what I want her to remember.
There was never a time where I felt like I wouldn't have that feeling again. I know myself, and I know I'm like a shitty little cockroach that just won't die. I will not go away. It was more of just like a waiting game to get there. It's almost like being able to let out a full breath of like, okay, like this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what I'm capable of. And I just had to get there again. This is who I am. Now that I've secured the total that I need, I can focus full force on going to Pan Ams. It's not a if, when, how, it's a I'm going, let's get in the best shape we can by that point. From there, it's just gearing up for another World Championships. I'm pretty sure this year we'll make 10. I need to check that, and I also think it'll be 10 years of medaling at Pan Ams if I can medal. So it's just a year, it feels like a kind of a landmark year of competing for me, and I don't think it could come at a better time and a better place in my career.
Are you gonna win Pan Ams?
I'm not the type to say, oh yeah, I'm gonna win this or that, but I'm surely going to try, and I do love a good battle. I'm focusing on year by year, and I want to be a world champion before I retire. I want to break American records. I want to continue with medal streaks, and I want to expand kind of my, I don't know if you want to call it a legacy, but everything that I've done over the last decade as much as I can in that time period where I normally would just have this sole focus on 2028. If I do all those things and I end up in a position to qualify, amazing, but I'm not making it my sole reason to live. Every World Championships is a big deal. Every Pan Ams is a big deal. Every Nationals that I usually don't even get to go to are a big deal. And I want to appreciate all of those for what they are, just do the best that I can do at every single event and try to rack up wins as a whole instead of just this one big either win or loss, make it or don't Olympic situation. It's been a long road to get here, but I truly and honestly believe that who I am today is the best version of me that I've ever been, and who I'll be tomorrow will be an even better version of that. And I think mentally, physically, athletically, I think I'm the most well-rounded and capable. I think as an athlete, that makes me more dangerous than I've ever been because I'm not just an athlete anymore. I'm not living and breathing just to do this one thing. I'm such a kind of multifaceted person, and I've always known that, but I've for so long functioned in a way that I can only do this one thing. And if I'm not doing this, it's taking away from lifting. And I'm able to kind of just be and explore the other things that I like and the other things that make me, a human and a person and happy, and find ways to integrate that in with lifting. And it just makes me so much more whole. And I think that kind of prepares me for being the absolute best athlete that I will ever be. My life has done a complete 180 in the last 2 years. I live now in a new house that I can make my own and that I love, and I feel safe, and I'm with someone who makes me feel loved and safe and appreciated, and my body is not, constantly in fight or flight mode, and it can relax and it can feel decompressed at the end of the day instead of just coming home and just being in this mode of just hell all the time. And I have 3 dogs now and 3 cats currently, and I can just be and explore all of these different parts of life that I never knew before. And I have truly like a village of support behind me now, and that's something I've never ever in my life experienced. And it's something that makes me so grateful to wake up every day. And it's just everything about existence and being is better, healthier, and more capable of doing whatever it is that I want to do.
Love it. Anything else?
You bought me coffee for breakfast.
few weeks ago on my last heavy day leading up to nationals, so about a week out from nationals, I had a TIA in training, which is basically a mini stroke, and I was in the hospital for 3 to 4 days as we kind of figured out if we could find a cause or a reason. We didn't, but I did have to just stay and get all the testing done and just make sure, you know, there wasn't another clot that was going to come through if I went back to training or anything like that. First symptom that I had was that I kind of lost vision in my left eye. And I know that sounds dramatic. Like I didn't know how to describe it at first, but it's kind of like if you look at the sun and try to like blink away like that spot, it would never go away. But I kept training, so I was like, that's weird. I must have just looked at the sun, whatever. But then I started to have like weakness down the left side. I was starting to feel like real kind of confused, and I went to the front where there's air conditioning, and I was like, I should probably stop. Like I feel just something feels wrong. So it took me probably close to 20 minutes before I actually stopped training. And then the symptoms escalated, and I kind of started like forgetting names, forgetting words. I had like a really hard time speaking for, 10-ish minutes. And that's when we went to the ER. I think I was mostly just confused because I didn't know what was happening. I actually texted Amy as it was happening and kind of made a joke. And I was like, I feel like I'm having a stroke, LOL, because I was just like, I don't know. That's how I decided to handle it, with humor. But then turns out it really was. And once I kind of got to the hospital, got admitted, and was actually knew I was going to be in there for a few days, I was like, well, fuck. Basically, like my training was going so well, and I was only at that point 7 days out from competing at nationals, which was kind of my like test run for Pan Am. So I was really excited to go there. I was going to go there and maybe try to break some records and just like have a good kind of tune-up day before going to Pan Am's. And then that became basically my stress test that week, because I was only out of the hospital for I think 2 or 3 days before I had to travel, and I wanted to test, can I travel? Will something happen if I travel? Will something happen if I have nerves and adrenaline? Because I wanted to test all of that in America before going to, Pan Am's in a different country. The day I got out of the hospital, I basically said that I would go to the gym. I would do a really light session and just, see how it went, and try to gradually over the 3 days that I was at home, basically increase the load up to what my lowest possible openers needed to be. I mean, I felt bad. None of it felt good after laying in the hospital for 4 days, but I gradually increased, and everything, was fine. There were no scary symptoms, any return of symptoms. So I believe it was that Wednesday, I worked up to the lowest possible openers, and then I flew out Thursday to go compete at nationals.
Welcome to Colorado Springs, home of the 2025 USAW Championship. Mattie Rogers, the most decorated American female weightlifter of all time.
Good lift for Mattie Rogers. She goes 5 for 6 today, total 241.
So I came home, decided I was, safe enough to go to Pan Am's, got back to training, which, had to still be altered because I just wasn't feeling great those couple weeks before Pan Am's. I got medical clearance to safely travel internationally, and I wanted to go to Pan Am's, and I knew that I had a decent shot, that those few weeks of kind of altered training weren't going to be the end of the world. I'd worked so hard in the months leading up to it, and I was in the best shape that I've been in. So I didn't know what to expect really, but I was at least prepared to battle. When I realized that I won, I mostly just felt relief. I was happy that I had done everything that I intended to do, regardless of everything that happened, because that was my goal, to win, you know, all year long. I wanted to kind of prove a point after not having the greatest comeback of a start internationally at the end of last year. And I wanted to prove, like, I'm still here. I'm, you know, deserving of support, of whatever. Like, I'm not going anywhere, and I'm better than I ever have been. And I was just so proud and relieved that I was able to still show that, even with all of these things that happened that, you know, should have prevented that from happening. So it's like, if I can do it under these circumstances, what about when I'm not in the hospital 2 weeks out?
Do you think in over 10 years of competing, you've made an impact on the younger generation?
I like to think that I've made an impact. I mean, you know, it's hard to say, and I don't think I'm the kind of person that's ever gonna, you know, toot my own horn about that. But I do know when I first won my first world's medal, it was the first woman to medal in, I don't know, like 25 years. And then to continue to medal every world's, every international meet after that, I think it shows that it can be done. And that used to be kind of a motto back when I first started. It was literally like, it can be done. That's what our old CEO used to say all the time. And it was like proving that Americans, and specifically American women, can stack up against the other countries that, I mean, for years and years and maybe even decades, just beat us every single time. So I do like to think that I kind of led that path. And, you know, the saying, like, I walked so they could run, that resonates with me, because I feel like my career, as far as like records and medals and like in terms of just like dominating, is never going to be as, I guess, substantial as those that are coming after me. But I do think that my kind of legacy and my putting one foot in the door has kind of led the way for the next generation of women's weightlifting.
Whatever you do in life, do it well, do it to the best of your abilities. Take pride in it. Anything worth doing is worth doing right. I love you, Dad.
My career kind of shows that you don't have to be a prodigy or born to do this, that, or the other, but you do have to be just fucking relentless.